Oh, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a good weekend. We're going to be covering the cell and its function today. Though this doesn't cover too much on the magical physiology of the body, it is incredibly helpful to understand what is happening at a cellular level. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to cover chapter 2 of your textbook today. I'm also going to be eating because I didn't get a chance to while I was prepping class. Um, but hopefully you read everything over the weekend. So this should all be review. So each of the trillions of cells in a humanoid is a living structure that can survive for months or years, provided its surrounding fluids contain appropriate nutrients. So, cells are the building blocks of the body, providing structure to tissues and organs, ingesting nutrients, converting them to energy, and performing some other functions. Cells also contain the body's hereditary code, which controls the substances synthesized by the cells and permits them to make copies. Its two major parts of this are the nucleus and the cytoplasm. The nucleus is separated from the cytoplasm by a nuclear membrane, and the cytoplasm is separated from the surrounding fluids by a cell membrane, also called the plasma membrane. The different substances that make up the cell are collectively called protoplasm, which is composed mainly of five basic substances: water, electrolytes, proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. Most cells, except for fat cells, are comprised mainly of water and a concentration of 70 to 85%. Many cellular chemicals are dissolved in the water. Others are suspended in the water as solid particulates. Chemical reactions take place among the dissolved chemicals or at the surfaces of the suspended particles or membranes. So, important ions to remember: potassium, magnesium, phosphate, sulfate, bicarbonate, and in some smaller quantities, sodium, chloride, and calcium. The ions provide inorganic chemicals for cellular reactions and are necessary for the operation of some cellular control mechanisms. For example, ions acting at the cell membrane are required for the transmission of electrochemical impulses in nerve and muscle fibers. After water, the most abundant substance in most cells are proteins, which normally constitute 10 to 20% of the cell's mass. These proteins can be present in the cell mainly in the form of long filaments that are polymers of many individual protein molecules. Prominent use of such intracellular uh, filaments is to form microtubules, which provide the cytoskeletons of cellular organelles such as cilia, nerve, and magical axons, the mitotic spindles of cells undergoing mitosis, and a tangled mass of thin filamentous tubules that hold parts of the cytoplasm and nucleoplasm together in their separate compartments. Uh, Fibrillar proteins are found outside the cell, especially in the collagen and elastin fibers of connective tissue and elsewhere, such as in blood vessel walls, tendons, ligaments. The functional proteins are usually composed of combinations of a few molecules in tubular, globular form. These proteins are mainly the enzymes of the cell, and in contrast to the fibrillar, proteins are often mobile in the cell fluid. Also, many of them are inherent to membranous structures inside the cell and catalyze specific intracellular chemical reactions. Uh, for instance, the chemical reactions that split glucose into its component parts and then combine these with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water, while simultaneously providing energy for cellular function, are all catalyzed by a series of protein enzymes. Lipids are several types of substances. They're all kind of grouped together because they have a common property of being soluble in fat solvents. Especially important lipids are phospholipids and cholesterol, which together constitute only about 2% of the total cell mass. Phospholipids and cholesterol are mainly insoluble in water and therefore are used to form the cell membrane and intracellular membrane barriers that separate the different compartments. In addition to phospholipids and cholesterol, some cells contain large quantities of triglycerides, which are also known as neutral fats. In fat cells, or adipocytes as they're known, triglycerides often account for as much as 95% of the cell mass. The fat stored in these cells represents the body's main storehouse of energy giving nutrients that can later be used to provide energy wherever it is needed in the body. Carbohydrates play a major role in cell nutrition, and as parts of glycoprotein molecules have structural functions. Most humanoid cells do not maintain large stores of carbohydrates. The amount usually averages only about 1% of total mass, but increases to as much as 3% in muscle cells and occasionally to 6% in liver cells. However, carbohydrate in the form of dissolved glucose is always present in the surrounding extracellular fluid so that it's readily available to the cell. Also, a small amount of carbohydrate is stored in cells as glycogen, which is an insoluble polymer of glucose that can be depolymerized and used rapidly to supply the cell's energy needs. The cell contains highly organized physical structures called intercellular organelles, which are critical for cell function. Without one of these organelles, the mitochondria specifically, more than 95% of the cell's energy released from nutrients would cease completely. Most organelles are covered by membranes composed primarily of lipids and proteins. These membranes include the cell membrane, the nuclear membrane, membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, and membranes of the mitochondria, lysosomes, and Golgi apparatus. The lipids and membranes provide a barrier that impedes movement of water and water-soluble substances from one cell compartment to another because water is not soluble in lipids. However, protein molecules often penetrate all the way through the membranes, thus providing specialized pathways, which are like pores, for passage of specific substances through those membranes. Also, many other membrane proteins are enzymes, which catalyze a multitude of different chemical reactions. So the cell membrane envelops the cell and is a thin, pliable, elastic structure. It's about 7.5 to 10 nanometers thick. It's super small and very thin. And it's composed almost entirely of proteins and lipids. About 55% protein, 25% phospholipid. There's some cholesterol and some other lipids and carbs thrown in there as well. The cell's membrane basic structure is a lipid bilayer, which is a thin, double-layered film of lipids, each layer only one molecule thick. It's continuous over the entire cell surface, and then interspersed in that lipid film are large globular proteins. The basic lipid bilayer is composed of three main types: phospholipids, sphingolipids, and cholesterol. Phospholipids are the most abundant. One end of each of those is hydrophilic and soluble in water. The other end is hydrophobic and soluble only in fats. So the phosphate end is hydrophilic, and the fatty acid protein is hydrophobic. Because the hydrophobic portions are repelled by water, but they're mutually attracted to one another, they have a natural tendency to attach to one another in the middle of that membrane. And the hydrophilic phosphate portions then constitute the two surfaces of the complete cell membrane, in contact with intracellular water on the inside of the membrane and extracellular water on the outside surface. The lipid layer in the middle of the membrane is impermeable to the usual water-soluble substances, ions, glucose, and urea. Conversely, fat-soluble substances, such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, and alcohol, can penetrate this portion of the membrane with ease. Sphingolipids, derived from the amino alcohol sphingosine, also have hydrophobic and hydrophilic groups and are present in small amounts in the cell membranes, especially nerve and magic cells. Complex sphingolipids in cell membranes are thought to serve several functions, including protection from harmful environmental factors, signal transmission, and adhesion sites for extracellular proteins. Cholesterol molecules in membranes are also lipids because their steroid nuclei are highly fat soluble. These molecules, in a sense, are dissolved in the bilayer of the membrane. They mainly help determine the degree of permeability of the bilayer to water-soluble constituents in body fluids. Cholesterol controls much of the fluidity of the membrane as well. There are also globular masses floating inside the lipid bilayer. These proteins are mainly glycoproteins, and there are two major types of cell membrane proteins: integral proteins, which protrude all the way through the membrane, and peripheral proteins, which are attached to only one surface of the membrane but don't go all the way through. Many of the integral proteins provide structural pores through which water molecules and water soluble substances, especially ions, can diffuse between extra and intracellular fluids. These protein channels also have selective properties that allows preferential diffusion of some substances. Other integral proteins act as carrier proteins for transporting substances that otherwise wouldn't be able to get through the bilayer. Sometimes these carrier proteins even transport substances in the direction opposite to their electrochemical gradients for diffusion, which is called active transport. Others act as enzymes. Integral membrane proteins can also serve as receptors for water-soluble chemicals such as peptide hormones that do not easily penetrate the cell membrane. Interaction of cell membrane receptors with specific ligands that bind to the receptor causes conformational changes in the receptor protein itself. This process, in turn, is going to enzymatically activate the intracellular part of a protein or induces interactions between the receptor and the proteins in the cytoplasm that act as second messengers, relaying the signal from the extracellular part to the interior of the cell. In this way, integral proteins spanning the cell membrane provides a mean of conveying information about the environment to the cell interior. Now, peripheral protein molecules are often attached to integral proteins. These peripheral proteins function almost entirely as enzymes or as controllers of transport of substances through cell membrane pores. Membrane carbohydrates occur almost invariably in combination with proteins or lipids in the form of glycoproteins or glycolipids. In fact, most of the integral proteins are glycoproteins, and only about a tenth of the membrane lipid molecules are glycolipids. The glyco portions of these molecules almost invariably protrude to the outside of the cell, dangling outward from the cell surface. And many other carbohydrate compounds, such as proteoglycans, which are mainly carbohydrates bound to small protein cores, are loosely attached to the outer surface of the cell as well. Thus, the entire outside surface of the cell often has a loose carbohydrate coat called the glycocalyx. The carbohydrate moieties attached to the outer surface of the cell have several important functions. For one, many of them have a negative electrical charge, which gives most cells an overall negative surface charge that repels other negatively charged objects. Two, the glycocalyx of some cells attaches to the glycocalyx of other cells, thus attaching multiple cells together. Three, many of the carbohydrates act as receptors for binding hormones, such as insulin. And when bound, this combination activates attached internal proteins that then activate a cascade of intracellular enzymes, that same kind of intracellular communication. And then four, some carbohydrate moieties enter into immune reactions of some sorts. The cytoplasm is filled with minute and large dispersed particles and organelles. The jelly-like fluid portion of the cytoplasm in which the particles are dispersed is called cytosol and contains mainly dissolved proteins, electrolytes, and glucose. Dispersed in the cytoplasm are neutral fat globules, glycogen granules, ribosomes, secretory vesicles, and five especially important organelles: the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, lysosomes, and peroxisomes. The endoplasmic reticulum is a network of tubular structures called cisternae and flat vesicular structures in the cytoplasm. So this organelle helps process molecules made by the cell and transports them to their destinations inside or outside of the cell. The tubules and vesicles interconnect. Also, their walls are constructed of that same kind of lipid bilayer that contain a ton of proteins similar to that cell membrane. And the total surface area of this structure in some cells, like the liver, can be as much as 30 to 40 times the actual cell membrane area. The space inside the tubules and vesicles is filled with this endoplasmic matrix. It's a watery medium. It's different from fluid on the cytosol, and the space inside is connected with the space between the two membrane surfaces of the nuclear membrane. So substances formed in some parts of the cell enter the space of the endoplasmic reticulum and are then directed to other parts of the cell. Also, the vast surface area of the reticulum and the multiple enzyme systems attached to it provide the mechanisms for a major share of the cell's metabolic functions. So attached to the outer surfaces of many parts of the endoplasmic reticulum are large numbers of minute granular particles called ribosomes. Where these particles are present, the reticulum is called a rough or granular endoplasmic reticulum. The ribosomes are composed of a mixture of RNA and proteins, and they function to synthesize new protein molecules in the cell. Part of the endoplasmic reticulum has no attached ribosomes. This is called the smooth or agranular endoplasmic reticulum. And the smooth reticulum functions for the synthesis of lipid substances and for other processes of the cells promoted by intra-reticular enzymes. Now, the Golgi apparatus is closely related to the endoplasmic reticulum. It has membranes similar to those of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It's usually composed of 4 or more stacked layers of thin, flat, enclosed vesicles lying near one side of the nucleus. Think like a stack of pancakes is kind of what it looks like. This apparatus is prominent in secretory cells, where it is located on the side of the cell from which secretory substances are extruded. The Golgi apparatus functions in association with the endoplasmic reticulum. Small transport vesicles, also called endoplasmic reticulum vesicles, continually pinch off from the endoplasmic reticulum and shortly thereafter fuse with the Golgi apparatus. In this way, substances entrapped in ER vesicles are transported from the ER to the Golgi apparatus, and the transported substances are then processed to form lysosomes, secretory vesicles, and other cytoplasmic components. Essentially like taking a box of information and moving it from one place to another so the other place can start working on that information. Lysosomes are vesicular organelles that form by breaking off from the Golgi apparatus and disperse throughout the cytoplasm. And they provide essentially a digestive system that allows the cell to digest damaged cellular structures, food particles that have been ingested by the cell, and unwanted matter, such as bacteria. They're different in various cell types, but are usually 250 to 750 nanometers in diameter. They're surrounded by a typical lipid bilayer membranes and are filled with large numbers of small granules, which are protein aggregates of as many as 40 different digestive enzymes. A hydrolytic enzyme is capable of splitting an organic compound into 2 or more parts by combining hydrogen from a water molecule with one part of the compound and combining the hydroxyl portion of the water molecule with the other part of the compound. For example, protein is hydrolyzed to form amino acids. Glycogen is hydrolyzed to form glucose, and lipids are hydrolyzed to form fatty acids and glycerol. Hydrolytic enzymes are highly concentrated in those lysosomes. Ordinarily, the membrane surrounding the lysosome prevents the enclosed hydrolytic enzymes from coming into contact with other substances in the cell, and therefore prevents their digestive actions. However, some conditions of the cell break the membranes of that lysosome, allowing release of those digestive enzymes. And then these split the organic substances with which they come into contact into small, highly diffusible substances. Some of the specific functions we'll talk about later on with lysosomes. Peroxisomes, though, are physically similar to lysosomes, but they are different in 2 very important ways. One, they're believed to be formed by self-replication or maybe budding off of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum rather than from the Golgi apparatus. Two, they contain oxidases rather than hydrolases, like the lysosomes have. Those oxidases are capable of combining oxygen with hydrogen ions derived from different cellular chemicals to form hydrogen peroxide or H2O2. Hydrogen peroxide is a very highly oxidizing substance and is used in association with catalase, another oxidase enzyme present in large quantities in those peroxisomes, to oxidize many substances that might be otherwise poisonous to the cell. Uh, about half the alcohol that a person would drink is detoxified into acetaldehyde by the peroxisomes of the liver cells in this manner. A major function of peroxisomes is also to catabolize long chain fatty acids. One of the important functions of many cells is secretion of special chemical substances. Almost all such secretory substances are formed by the endoplasmic reticulum Golgi apparatus system and are then released from the Golgi apparatus into the cytoplasm in the form of storage vesicles called secretory vesicles or granules. The mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Without them, cells would be unable to extract enough energy from the nutrients, and essentially all cellular functions would cease. Mitochondria are present in all areas of each cell's cytoplasm, but the total number per cell varies from less than 100 up to several thousand, depending on how much energy is required in that cell. Cardiac muscle cells, for example, use tons of energy and have far more mitochondria than fat cells, which are much less active and use way less energy. Furthermore, the mitochondria are concentrated in those portions of the cell responsible for the major share of its energy metabolism. They also are different in size and shape. Some are only a few hundred nanometers in diameter and are kind of globular, whereas others are elongated or as large as 1 micrometer in diameter or 7 micrometers long. Others are branching and filamentous. They're all kinds of different. So just based on what they are needed for in that specific cell. The basic structure is composed mainly of the two lipid bilayer protein membranes, an outer membrane and an inner membrane. There are many infoldings of the inner membrane, and it forms shelves called cristae, onto which oxidative enzymes are attached. And the cristae provide a large surface area for chemical reactions to occur. In addition, the inner cavity is filled with a matrix that contains large quantities of dissolved enzymes necessary for extracting that energy from nutrients. These enzymes operate in association with oxidative enzymes on the cristae to cause oxidation of nutrients, thereby forming carbon dioxide and water, and at the same time releasing energy. The liberated energy is used to synthesize a high energy substance called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is then transported out of the mitochondrion and diffuses throughout the cell to release its own energy wherever it is needed for performing cellular functions. Mitochondria are self-replicative, which means that one mitochondrion can form a second one and a third one, and so on, whenever the cell needs increased amounts of ATP. Indeed, the mitochondria contain DNA similar to what's found in the cell nucleus, but the DNA of the mitochondrion plays a similar role controlling replication of the mitochondria specifically. Cells that are faced with increased energy demands, for example, in skeletal muscles subjected to chronic exercise training, may increase the density of mitochondria to supply the additional energy required. The cell cytoskeleton is a network of fibrillar proteins organized into filaments or little tubules. These originate at precursor proteins synthesized by ribosomes in the cytoplasm. The precursor molecules then polymerize to form the filaments. As an example, large numbers of actin microfilaments frequently occur in the outer zone of the cytoplasm, or called the ectoplasm, to form an elastic support for the cell membrane. Also in muscle cells, actin and myosin filaments are organized into special contractile machine that is the basis for muscle contraction. Intermediate filaments are generally stronger rope-like filaments that work together with microtubules, providing strength and support for the fragile tubulin structures. They're called intermediate because their average diameter is between that of the narrower actin microfilaments and wider myosin filaments found in muscle cells. Their functions are mainly mechanical. They're less dynamic than actin microfilaments or microtubules, but all cells have them, although the protein subunits of these structures can vary. Specific intermediate filaments found in various cells include Desmond filaments in muscle cells, neurofilaments and neurons, and keratins in epithelial cells. A special type of stiff filament composed of polymerized tubulin molecules is used in all cells to construct strong tubular structures, the microtubules. Another example of microtubules is the tubular skeletal structure in the center of each cilium that radiates upward from the cell cytoplasm to the tip of the cilium. Also, both the centrioles and mitotic spindles of cells undergoing mitosis are composed of stiff microtubules. A major function of those microtubules is to act as a cytoskeleton, providing rigid physical structures for certain parts of the cells. The cytoskeleton not only determines the cell shape, but also participates in cell division. It allows cells to move. It provides a track-like system that directs the movement of organelles in the cells. Microtubules serve as conveyor belts of a sort for intracellular transport of vesicles, granules, and organelles, such as mitochondria. And then there's the nucleus of it's the control center of the cell, sends messages to the cell to grow, mature, replicate, or die. Briefly, the nucleus contains large quantities of DNA, which comprise your genes. The genes determine the characteristics of the cell's proteins, including the structural proteins, as well as the intracellular enzymes that control the cytoplasmic and nuclear activities. The genes also control and promote cell reproduction. The genes first reproduce to create two identical sets of genes. Then the cell splits by a special process called mitosis to form two daughter cells, each of which receives one of the two sets of DNA genes. Now, unfortunately, the appearance of the nucleus under the microscope does not provide many clues to the mechanisms whereby the nucleus performs its control activities. The nuclear membrane or envelope is actually two separate bilayer membranes, one inside the other. The outer membrane is continuous with the endoplasmic reticulum of the cell cytoplasm, and the space between the two nuclear membranes is also continuous with the space inside the endoplasmic reticulum. The nuclear membrane is penetrated by several thousand vesicles. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. It's penetrated by thousands of nuclear pores. Large complexes of proteins are attached at the edges of the pores so that the central area of each pore is only about 9 nanometers in diameter. Even this size is large enough to allow molecules up to a molecular weight of about 44,000 to pass through with reasonable ease. The nuclei of most cells contain one or more highly staining structures called nucleoli. The nucleolus, and unlike most other organelles discussed here in this class, does not have a limiting membrane. Instead, it's simply an accumulation of large amounts of RNA and proteins, the types found in ribosomes. The nucleolus enlarges considerably when the cell is actively synthesizing proteins, and formation of the nucleoli and the ribosomes of the cytoplasm outside the nucleus begins in the nucleus. First, specific DNA genes in the chromosomes cause RNA to be synthesized. Some of this synthesized RNA is stored in the nucleoli, but most of it is transported outward through the nuclear pores into the cytoplasm. Here, it is used in conjunction with specific proteins to assemble mature ribosomes that play an essential role in forming cytoplasmic proteins. If a cell is to live and grow and reproduce, it must obtain nutrients and other substances from the surrounding fluids. Most substances pass through the cell membrane by the process of diffusion and active transport. Diffusion just means simple movement through the membrane caused by the random motion of molecules in the substance. Substances move through the cell membrane pores, or in the case of lipid-soluble substances, through the lipid matrix. Active transport involves actually carrying a substance through the membrane by a physical protein structure. Large particles enter the cell by a specialized function of the cell membrane called endocytosis. The principal forms of endocytosis are pinocytosis and phagocytosis. Pinocytosis means ingestion of minute particles that form vesicles of extracellular fluid and particulate constituents inside the cell cytoplasm. Phagocytosis means the ingestion of large particles such as bacteria, whole cells, or portions of degenerating tissue. Pinocytosis occurs continually, but it is especially rapid in some cells. It occurs so rapidly in macrophages that about 3% of the total macrophage membrane is engulfed in the form of vesicles each minute. Even so, the pinocytotic vesicles are so small that most of them can be seen only with an electron microscope. Pinocytosis is the only means whereby most large macromolecules, such as proteins, can enter cells. In fact, the rate at which pinocytotic vesicles form is usually enhanced when such macromolecules attach to the cell membrane. These molecules usually attach to specialized protein receptors on the surface of the membrane that are specific for the type of protein that is to be absorbed. The receptors generally are concentrated in small pits on the outer surface of the cell membrane called coated pits. On the inside of the cell membrane, beneath these pits is a lattice work of fibrillar protein called clathrin, as well as other proteins, perhaps including contractile filaments of actin and myosin. Once the protein molecules have bound with the receptors, the surface properties of the local membrane change in such a way that the entire pit invaginates inward, and fibrillar proteins surrounding the invaginating pit cause its borders to close over the attached proteins, as well as over a small amount of extracellular fluid. Immediately thereafter, that portion of the membrane breaks away from the surface of the cell, forming a pinocytotic vesicle inside the cytoplasm of the cell itself. What causes the cell membrane to go through the necessary contortions to form pinocytotic vesicles is still kind of unclear. This process requires energy from within the cell, which is supplied by ATP. This process also requires the presence of calcium ions in the extracellular fluid, which probably react with the contractile protein filaments beneath the coated pits to provide the force to pinch off the vesicle away from the membrane. On the other hand, phagocytosis occurs in much the same way as pinocytosis, except that it involves large particles rather than molecules. Only certain cells have this capability, notably tissue macrophages and some white blood cells. Phagocytosis is initiated when a particle such as a bacterium, dead cell, or tissue debris binds with receptors on the surface of the phagocyte. In this case of bacteria, each bacterium is usually already attached to a specific antibody. It is the antibody that attaches to the phagocyte receptors, which drag the bacterium along with it. This intermediation of antibodies is called opsonization. Phagocytosis occurs in the following steps. 1, the cell membrane receptors attach to the surface ligands of the particle. 2, the edges of the membrane around the points of attachment evaginate outward within a fraction of a second to surround the entire particle, and then progressively more and more membrane receptors attach to the particle ligands. All this occurs suddenly in like a zipper-like manner to form a closed phagocytic vesicle. 3, then, actin and other contractile fibrils in the cytoplasm surround that vesicle and contract around its outer edge, pushing the vesicle toward the interior. And then finally, the contractile proteins then pinch the stem of the vesicle so completely that the vesicle separates from the cell membrane, leaving the vesicle in the cell interior in the same way that pinocytotic vesicles are formed. Now, almost immediately after one of these vesicles appears in the cell, one or more lysosomes become attached to the vesicle and empty their acid hydrolases to the inside of that. And the digestive vesicles formed inside the cell cytoplasm when they start breaking down the proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and other substances in there. The products of digestion are small molecules of substances such as amino acids, glucose, phosphates that can diffuse through the membrane of the vesicle into the cytoplasm. So what's left is called the residual body. It represents indigestible substances. In most cases, that's usually excreted through the cell membrane by a process called exocytosis, which is essentially the opposite of endocytosis. Thus, the penocytotic and phagocytic vesicles containing lysosomes can be called the digestive organs of the cells. Tissues of the body often regress in a smaller size, to a smaller size. For example, this regression occurs in the uterus of pregnancy, in muscles during long periods of inactivity, and in mammary glands at the end of lactation. Lysosomes are responsible for much of this regression. Another special role of the lysosomes is the removal of damaged cells or damaged portions of cells from tissues. Damage to the cell, heat, cold, trauma, chemicals, any other factor induces lysosomes to rupture. The released hydrolases immediately begin to digest the surrounding organic substances. And if the damage is slight, only a small portion of the cell is removed, and then the cell repairs itself. If the damage is severe, the entire cell is digested, which is a process called autolysis. In this way, the cell is completely removed and a new cell of the same type is formed, ordinarily by mitotic reproduction of an adjacent cell. The lysosomes also contain bactericidal agents that can kill phagocized bacteria before they cause cellular damage. You have lysozyme, which dissolves the bacterial cell wall. You have lysoferrin, which binds iron and other substances before they can promote bacterial growth. And acid at a pH of about 5, which activates the hydrolases and inactivates bacterial metabolic systems. Lysosomes play a key role in the process of autophagy, which literally means to eat oneself. Autophagy is a housekeeping process whereby obsolete organelles and large protein aggregates are degraded and recycled. Worn out, uh, Worn out cell organelles are transferred to lysosomes by double membrane structure called autophagosomes, which are formed in the cytosol. Invagination of the lysosomal membrane and the formation of vesicles provides another pathway for cytosolic structures to be transported into the lumen of lysosomes. Once inside, the organelles are digested, the nutrients are reused by the entire cell. Autophagy contributes to the routine turnover of cytoplasmic components. It's a key mechanism for tissue development, cell survival when nutrients are scarce, and the maintenance of homeostasis. For example, in the liver, the average mitochondrion normally has a lifespan of only about 10 days before it's destroyed. The extensiveness of the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus and secretory cells, we've already talked about, but these structures are formed primarily of lipid bilayer membranes, similar to the cell membrane, and their walls are loaded with protein enzymes that catalyze the synthesis of many substances required by the cell. Most synthesis begins in the endoplasmic reticulum, and the products formed there are then passed on to the Golgi apparatus, where they're further processed before being released into the cytoplasm. But let me note the specific processes and products that are synthesized in specific portions of the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is characterized by ribosomes attached to the surfaces. Protein molecules are synthesized within that. The ribosomes extrude some of the synthesized protein into the cytosol, but they may also extrude many more through the wall of the endoplasmic reticulum to the interior of the endoplasmic vesicles and tubules into the endoplasmic matrix. I do apologize. We did run over a little bit of time today, but we're finished with this. We'll continue the cell and its function lecture, and then we'll jump into genetic control of protein synthesis, cell function, and cell reproduction next class time. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I know exam day is coming up, so make sure that you are prepared for that. We had some homework to do. I hope everybody remembered. Would anybody like to go first?
One question before I go. Um, I don't know how much time that you're wanting us to take up for the schedule. Like, because there's 24 hours in a day. I don't know how long the class, how much of that time you wanted us to schedule.
Oh, you don't need to plan out every single hour of your day. Just really like what classes are you taking on what day? Most classes at the college range anywhere from 30 minutes, like the class I teach, to up to 2 hours. And that's pretty normal for any college campus. Um,
So wasn't there a spot to put your schedule? Because I was trying to find that. I thought Philip showed
Oh,
something.
I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that.
yes, it is in Messenger. It's in that PDF. There is a page. It's on landscape, and it lets you put your um,
Was it Messenger?
yeah, I know Tim just recently sent it back over in Messenger. And in fact, if you click on, let's see,
I don't know if the what the copy I had a good version of that because it like super shrank it down. Um, so I
there's
couldn't
a
find.
way to access specifically like the documents and PDFs that have been, oh, yeah, okay. Like it's the three little dots up in the corner. There's media's files and links. Um, and with links, if you click on it, there's one that says Weber Haven, which brings you to um, a Google Doc of all of that. And it is on page.
Um, yeah, I'll
Oh,
wait for
let's
it
see
to.
it.
I know we're all taking, or most all taking the basic magical auras class. What day do y'all want to do that on?
I had put all the classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because John had, as like a throwaway line, had said all the like general ones tend to be on those days. So that's how I scheduled that.
I'm going for Monday then. For
I didn't set it up, but I'll go over my schedule while y'all find that.
Sure.
that.
Classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Uh, I've got chess club on Wednesday night
Of
because he
course.
joined the Dragon Chess Club.
Mm-hmm.
And then he works as a cook in the inn on Tuesdays and Thursdays night, afternoon to evening.
Ooh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. He wanted to have something that he felt competent in because he joined the chess club because he remembered his grandfather always had a dragon chessboard set up and he knew the basics of it and thought it would be, oh, it's just a fun, it's a game club. I can just go and play and have fun. And then found out that they're really serious about chess, like really, really serious. So but he's sticking it out because one or two of them are like, we can teach you. And then will have, he'll play games against an opponent and he'll have two or three people behind him bickering about what his best next move is.
I like it.
Yeah. They're nerds. I know the type.
I mean, I guess in real life, I guess the game of chess has like had a huge return and like
It
a
really
ton of
has.
schools are doing it and playing chess, and they've had to like ban it in some classes because people are playing like chess.com during class.
Nerds.
I know, right? Nerds.
So I think I pretty much know mine, except for like your job. Like, how much do you need to work? Like that kind of thing is what I would need to know.
Um,
Is this like a 2 times a week or like a 3 times a week?
I think it's kind of up to you. I mean, if it's however much your character would need to work.
Okay,
You
sounds
know,
good.
if your character's, relatively well off and you're really doing it just kind of to fill your time, then that's all you'll need to do. If you aren't making any money and you need to pay your way, then you're probably going to be working a lot more. Did that make sense? I'm trying to
I'm
do
with you.
like 3 things at the same time, so sometimes it just doesn't quite.
What I heard was that I could just decide to be rich. That's what I heard. It's like, oh, I don't need to work, actually.
That
I
is
mean,
correct.
where
Just be
does
just be born a noble, duh. Like it's just that simple.
Just be born.
I mean, where does Jera get all the money for all the books she has?
It's true. I don't know if she's paying for all of them.
Love it.
That sounds worse than it probably is.
I'm not stealing, I'm just borrowing indefinitely.
She's very charming, you know? People might loan her books and she might just forget to take them back. Like literally forget to take them back for years. And then, you know, it's awkward. You don't want to just like show up and be like, here's a book I borrowed.
Oh, she's the worst.
It's been like 7 years.
I only have like 5 or 6 books in my library like that. Most of them were John's. He doesn't need them. He's moving all over the place. He doesn't need a library.
I mean, that's fair. You don't want to be.
I'm storing. Basically, I'm storing them for him, and really, he should be paying me for the privilege. So, but yeah, we can waive it because we're all friends here.
Oh, we're all friends here.
I sent you a picture through Messenger. It's a picture though, so it'll be however you'll have to rewrite it however it works best for you, or print it out and write on it, whatever.
We were having memories. What's this picture for? Sorry,
It's just it's like your class order, who you're friends with, what you get on your report cards, what your extracurriculars are. This doesn't really have a ton of space for you to be able to write your classes on, but it tells you like who your employer is and stuff like that.
classes I assume are once a week or are they like every day? Like the forest class, the botany class, and all that stuff.
Well, our basic one class that we're hearing is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, most classes follow either a Monday, Wednesday, Friday structure, and then the classes are typically shorter, like 30 minutes, or they do a Tuesday, Thursday structure, and the classes are longer. They're about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes long. There are some classes that are usually your basic classes, your really basic classes, and those are Monday through Friday, and they're usually about half an hour long. But typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday is going to be how your classes are structured, for either, well, for any time from 30 minutes to 2 hours. 2 hours is usually like your science classes that have a lab portion, or some like music classes and things like that are an extended time to really allow you to really work on a piece of music or a piece of art. That's really what you see.
What was the page with the classes again? That's just the only thing I need left.
Classes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull up the one that you guys have in Messenger so I can tell you exactly from what you can see.
Was it in the giant PDF that's shared in
Yes.
Okay, sweet. It's the one I'm currently looking at. Trying to.
Your classes. Gosh, I forgot how much I wrote out for all of this crap. It's not crap, it's super exciting, and it's D&D, so
I mean, like I see like the colleges with the studies and philosophies, but I'm not really seeing.
There's your extracurriculars down at the bottom. Jobs. Your classes are not in here.
Yeah, I
think you
couldn't
put
find
it-
those.
I
I put it
think-
in the yeah, it's right here. So it was back on, I can't see a date, March 16th at 6:45. There were 6 courses. Archnobotany for beginners, basic magical auras, beginning computational magic, beginning incomancy, history of magic and art, and introduction to archaeomancy.
I
Right,
will
yeah,
pop
it does.
Yeah, because I remember seeing them and we said it out loud like per session. I just don't remember that.
There you go.
Yeah, and then everyone.
My
said they were
man,
gonna
okay.
Pick 3, and I picked my 3. As far as my schedule, the only additions that Dill has, other than the classes, are the Play Actors Drama Guild and the Fantastical Horticultural Club, and working at the Fire Jolt Cafe.
All right. Oh yeah, because I remember you were gonna do. Are you a barista?
Yeah.
Nice.
Straight up. Hello.
Welcome to the
Fire Jolt Cafe.
In that list, under job options on that document, it tells you who your coworker is. And those are listed down at the bottom under fellow students. So just for simplicity's sake, with CJ's character working at the Fire Jolt Cafe, your coworker is Mina Lee. She is, and then it gives you some information about it. She's a lawful good human. She's a second year at Silver Quill. She's super in love with language. She adores how subtle differences in intonation and vocabulary can shape one's perception of reality. It's led her to join the Weber Haven Star as an investigative journalist. And it kind of just goes on. She has also taken a job at Fire Jolt Cafe, which not only provides some cash, but puts her in a position to hear snippets of conversation. And I've written some stuff about making friends and rivals, which require relationship points. Just to go over that very quickly, you'll have opportunities throughout the chapters to gain relationship points with student NPCs. Your total number of RP with an NPC determines your status with them. So everybody starts at 0 and increases or decreases by 1 over time. If you interact with one and you decide which category you wish your response to fall under. Are you having a friendly response, which is taking the form of showing warmth or providing affirmation, or a rivalrous response, which might be being rude, antagonizing them, or similar things like that. And then as you gain those points, and that's what that sheet kind of helps you keep track of, as you keep those points, you can become a friend, which gives you a bond boon from that person, or they can become a rival, which gives you the bane for that person. You do have the option, once you're a friend with somebody, to deepen that relationship. And you can become a beloved if you would so desire. And you do get some inspiration. You gain beloved inspiration after every long rest. Works like regular inspiration, except you regain a number of uses equal to the number of beloveds you have. So you can't go over your proficiency bonus, but if you have 3 people that you're beloved to, which is just, it's not necessarily a romantic relationship, it's just something, you're a very close friend with them. You can
like a bromance.
Yeah, exactly. You can gain 3 inspiration die instead of just the 1. You'll get 1 for each of them up to your inspiration or up to your proficiency bonus. You can end the relationship at any time. You know, if it ever drops below 1, your beloved relationship will end immediately. But everybody's going to have something that they can give you in return. So for Mina, if you become close friends with her and you get her boon, she'll share her knowledge with you. If you seek obscure information that's not specifically secret, Mina will research it and report it to you. So it could really help you out if you're trying to find some clues or something on something. But if you do the opposite, she will never have the ingredients in stock for beverages you initially order, even if it's a common drink.
Just, oh, sorry, we don't have that drink. Really? You said that last week. Yep, still don't have it.
You have tap water?
Sir, nope.
Just ran out this morning.
Really? Because the person in front of me just got it. Yeah, that was the last one.
Crazy, right? Tim's character's working at the Bow's End Tavern, which means that Stout Claw is your, Javanesh Stout Claw, who is an Owlin in Lorehold.
An Owlin? Cool.
If you get a boon with him, his reputation as a tough guy follows you, and if peers would be aggressive toward you, they would back down. But if you have their bane, the servers of the tavern know you are no friend of Javanesh, and at the slightest sign of trouble, they blame you and ask you to leave.
Wow.
Which would like just totally suck on campus.
Yeah.
Like you have one restaurant and they're like, that guy you need to leave. You
You
need to
just
go.
need to leave.
Hey, if anyone picks on you, Billy, I got you, man. Like,
Nah, Billy'd be tight with him. Like, all these young servers bickering and, all the petty squabbles of a restaurant, and Billy'd just be like, nah.
Oh wait, what role does Billy do there? What's his
He's a
job?
cook.
Okay, good. I was hoping he was back at house. He seems
Yeah, he's definitely a back house guy.
Billy is based heavily on Tim, I think.
It was accidental. If you will believe that, it was actually accidental, and I did not realize the fact that I made him work in food and be in a game club until I was hanging it out loud, and I went, ah, shit. So much for a fantasy world.
Tim's like, my first character was too out there and just, things weren't working. So I brought it. I'm just going to play myself.
In my defense, I was looking for, I don't know if this is in my defense or if this is insulting to myself. I was looking for things that fit for an older character. So like he chose the chess because I'm like, okay, chess is not hugely physically active or intensive study or anything. So it's a game. It's also kind of an old person game. I know that's changing in modern times, but for Billy's generation, it was an old person game. So that, he chose the cook because it's, just kind of a competency thing, But I guess you choose the It was either that or he was going to work in the library. And that one I felt was too on the nose, ironically.
Yeah, that would have been really you. That would have been really you.
No, I purposefully strayed away from that one because I'm like, I don't want to make it me. Billy's not me. Fuck.
All right, so Dell's working at Fire Jolt. Billy's working at the tavern. Where's Archie working? What's he doing?
Yeah, so Archie's classes are also Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He's taking Arcanobotany, of course, a basic magic auras class, and then probably history of magic and art, just because he needed a third one. And then he has Fantastical Horticulture Club on Tuesdays and Thursdays. However, he skips that every other Thursday. No explanation. And he works on the campus grounds as I don't know what the difference between a litter retriever and a trash collector is, but I'm gonna go with litter retriever.
Litter's outside a trash can. Trash is inside a trash can.
Okay, so instead of grabbing bags. Okay, cool. Yeah, he's a litter retriever. Anything he can't reach, Tobias Johansson will grab with his very long sticky tongue. Just shoot out at it. They are best friends now.
Completely
yeah.
forgot that you took a frog.
Yeah, he's so. Oh yeah. I need to talk to one of the deans of Witherhold to see if I can take Tobias's soul, like his spirit, out of his frog body, so that I can summon him, in whatever form I like with the animal summoning spell, whatever that one's called. Find familiar. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
All
something
right.
that's on my to-do list. But yeah, that's what he's like.
So your coworker is Shuvadri Glint Mantle, who is an Owlin, first year. Her boon, if you get to know her, if you quickly need the help of your peers, they drop everything to assist you as a favor to her. And then her bane, of course, is graffiti making rude allusions to you keeps appearing on campus, and it takes days to get cleaned off.
Oh, that's awesome.
So whichever way you decide to go with that, she's there. She's there for that. So who's next, Andrew or Yorick?
I guess I'll go. Classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would be working on the campus grounds, doing whatever they needed. Assuming the heavier lifting stuff such as mowing or anything like that, but whatever they need me to do. You do that Tuesdays and Thursdays, probably 8-hour shifts. So long standard shifts. And then of course, I mean, his club is gonna be the Iron Lifters Society. On paper it says Tuesday, Thursday, but most of us are gonna show Monday through Friday. So anyone that really wants to see those gains, and if you're not there Monday through Friday, you'll get a couple looks for sure. But on paper, Tuesday, Thursday. Am I forgetting something? No, I think that's it.
So they do specifically talk about competing in wait, you're the intramural gymnastics or you're the
I am Weberhaven Iron Lifter Society.
That's right. So you got Greta Gorin as your team, as your friendly member there.
Okay.
It says whoever is listed in there, but Greta Gorin, chaotic good dwarf, first year. Of course, a dwarf is going to be in the bodybuilder society, just how it goes. But if her boon is that if you need anything heavy moved, members of the Iron Lifter Society will show up to help you. However, her bane is that heavy things do show up in inconvenient places. Which
thanks for helping me at the one thing I'm good at.
I just think it's really funny just to be like, you walk into your dorm room and there's like a humongous rock on your toilet seat. You're like,
well, I also like imagining that I'm like, okay, can you help me lift this? And the 7-foot tall orc, and then this dwarf, I'm trying to lift the same object. It just ain't gonna work.
One of them is magic, I feel. The orc, clearly, because dwarves not only have the strength of a dwarf, but also have the strength of their rage. All right. So Andrew, where are you working? What are you doing?
Is there a job available for like grounds that's just picking up trash or
yes, you have a couple of different options there. At the Biblioplex, if you want to work there, they do have a cleanup crew member or a garden tender. The campus grounds, like Archie does, is a litter retriever, but there's also sidewalk sweeper or trash collector. Magic Labs have cleanup crews.
Well,
really
she
worth it.
definitely is looking for a job where she can find lots of junk that she finds interesting laying around.
I
That's
would
kind of
probably go with the dormitories then, as a cleanup crew member, because people are leaving stuff, and like if people, she'll like clean out rooms when people move out and stuff, and they leave all kinds of stuff behind. I think that would
not that kind of junk. Maybe like things that wash into the drains or
oh, like junk.
well, maybe.
I
Like if metal detecting was a thing, she would definitely do metal detecting.
I might put her at either the Weber Haven Stadium or the Biblioplex. The stadium's going to be a little bit more like, cleanup crew, and you'll go through and clean up after people specifically, but the Biblioplex cleanup crew is going to be more like amongst the books in the libraries and around a very vast area where there's a lot of high traffic. I think if she's looking more for trinkets, I think the Biblioplex might be the
Let's
best.
do the Biblioplex. That sounds like a place I'd like to hang out anyway. And as for classes, I'm gonna do the last three, but she definitely has deals with people in all of the other ones to get a copy of their notes. And
Uh,
she is going to do the same thing with all of the clubs. And she's going to try to maintain membership in all of them and skip them all equally, but also make her presence felt, outside of actual meeting times.
I really enjoy this. First off, I went to school with somebody my freshman year when I was in Bloomington. Her name was Molly, and she was like that. She would offer her notes for classes because they were so detailed and colored coded and all kinds of crazy stuff. She would sell them to you, and she made a killing uh for like science classes, Spanish, and all this kind of stuff. So definitely getting those vibes from Jera. And then having to do all of the clubs because you just have this horrible FOMO is classic freshman college student who's just like doesn't have anything figured out and thinks that the best way to figure it out is to do everything everywhere all at once. And that's very
Good movie.
I feel Jera is totally gonna have some burnout like real quick.
Well,
It's okay.
I'm
You're
not
just
gonna
in there
say that
enough.
she is immune to burnout. I'm just gonna say if anybody was, it would be her.
You're gonna be there enough that you're like notice that you're missing all of your clubs where you get a bane with every single person you see.
That's actually really funny because like
that is
all of the
hilarious.
banes are kind of like jokey,
Yeah, nothing like really intense. I like Quintilius's.
Yeah, he's
where
probably
they
not
have,
too mad that I was about to beat him up.
but his was that every time you do a performance, like at the thing, a crowd of people show up to boo you specifically.
Oh,
That's it.
that would honestly really piss off my character.
She's definitely going to try to avoid making anybody angry. That's another thing that she has.
John, you also asked for us to write down our study methods.
Yeah, I was just about to call that out as well.
Yes.
Because I had a
And
note on my character sheet.
the reason I hadn't talked about that is because that is going to lead us into what we're actually doing tonight. Which surprise, you all have your first magical physiology exam today. Or well, it's coming up soon. We have a couple of days to study. And the first phase of that is the studying phase. So you'll have the ability to study the course material, not you literally, but your character, And you
Thank
can
you.
use any ability check and skill during the studying phase. So we're going to work on some ability checks and how we study. And we will go from there. So let me pull up all of my info that I need. And then we'll go one by one and we'll talk about how we all study and how that's going to affect you on your testing later this evening.
Just for the record to start with, Billy would have definitely invited all of y'all to a study group. Just like, regardless of what y'all do, Billy'd been like, y'all want to study together, especially because he's in quite a few classes with Archie and Dell, and I don't know about Jara, and I know York's.
Yeah, York 100% would have reached out for Billy for sure. So that works out.
It's one of those where like we're opposite ends of the classroom, and he's like, "Okay, class," you just kind of look over and just do the head nod.
Like,
All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about how you study, and that the studying phase is going to result in each of you having a single ability check of your choice. It can be any ability check, but you have to tell me how it relates to your studying. So if you're like really, really good in stealth, you have to explain to me why you want to use that as your role for your studying purposes. I'm pretty open, as you know, with my D&D style. The studying phase is you brushing up on your coursework, you're prompting sparks of insight. When you're faced with difficult questions, you're using mnemonics or other memorization techniques to absorb academic material. I have the encounter, but you'll succeed. You need to succeed on an ability check against a DC that I have written down for the encounter. You can use any ability or skill you wish, but you can only use it once. And on a successful check, you gain one pre-roll to use during the test. I know it sounds kind of complicated. We'll work through it. You have the option of pulling an all-nighter. If you do that, you'll gain 2 re-rolls to use during the test if you succeed on an ability check, but you gain a level exhaustion that takes effect at the start of the day of the exam and can't be removed until the test is taken. If you study together, if 2 or more characters engage, each participating character has advantage on their ability check during the studying phase. Or you could just decide, you know what, I got this information, I'm going to skip studying. And you can just stop. You just don't get any gains or losses in your rerolls. You just have the straightforward roll if you feel very confident in it. So let me pull up my notes. Let me get everything here. Here we go.
So before we get too far into it, if we established a study group, because I would have went with Billy and Billy would have reached out to you guys, I would have recommended using my room actually, because I had that full 10-foot desk that it took the entire wall. That we could work on. Plus, I have my snacks and my bag of cooling with Mountain Dew shocking grass.
Hell yeah.
So, and plus he would really want to do that because while you guys are using the desk, what he would do group study, he would actually be listening to the not sermon. He would be listening to the class again on his stone while like working out on his bench. Just trying to focus on that while getting free gains.
Very nice. All right. So
And then I would go up to Billy and be like, "Hey, I didn't know what they meant by this. Do you understand this?" Sorry.
all right. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. So that's how you're going to be studying. Be hanging out. You're doing some work. You're applying the. Did Andrew leave?
He did.
Oh, he dropped. He might be switching to a computer.
That's true. So you're using your gains to gains your brain.
Gains on gains on gains. Let's
That's
go.
exactly my
Yeah.
thought.
I'm gains. I have hair and I can't.
Just one.
That's not my
And
hair.
so like so during like the actual class, like so he's recording it, and of course he's taking brief notes, but he's also like time stamping. So when he needs to
Sure.
go back and study, he can be like, oh,
Nice.
there's that one. I clearly didn't understand that. This is why I have a mark here. Unfortunately, I have a mark here on all of them. But that's why we're studying together.
I also like to think that like the lectures that I've created are in the vein of a teacher who expects way too much out of their students. Like she's there on she's been there for years. She's really in the college just for the research portion and to get her grant money. And they told her, no, listen, you've got to teach at least one intro level class. And she's like, fine. And this is the class that has come of that. It is an intro class at an advanced level, which is, I've had teachers like that. My first chemistry class, oh my gosh. I almost thought about just not doing any kind of science at all because I did so poorly in that class. Fortunately, I tried again and did much better because like organic chemistry, so much fun, such a fun class. I want to take it again.
So I'm back now.
You are back. You haven't missed much. We're just talking about specifically how Yorick does his studying. Um, it sounds like we're going to be working as a group to study. So you guys will be getting that bonus, which is, let me just remind myself, you will get advantage on your ability check during this studying phase. If you pass your check, you get one re-roll to use during the test. So you'll have advantage now to be able to get that re-roll for the test. So York, what ability check are you going to use to study?
Well, I would like to try to say the cheesy way and say strength with my gains for gains.
Of course. All right. You want to do a strength check? Since
Sure.
you're working in a
Do you
group,
want to do strength of athletics, which is your something?
it is entirely up to you.
I mean, they're both the same actually. So,
Okay.
but
Your DC on this is 12. It's not anything crazy. But you'll need to get at least a 12 and you do have advantage.
sweet. Side note, the bonuses we get for our clubs, do we get those now or is that a future thing?
If you're in the club, you can have them.
Cool. Let me change one little thing. What is our proficiency bonus right now? 3, 2,
Just two.
2. I'll just say +2 on this as well. That's a good thing I get advantage.
All
okay.
right. So you do pass. Your studying has been quite effective, so you will be able to have that re-roll for the testing phase. Um, the
And is this student die or what's the actual name of this? Like what is? I was just gonna. I think there's a way I can put it on my sheet. So
So the re-roll is specifically for the test. The student dice that you're talking about is the benefit of the extracurricular.
okay, yeah.
So
I
the
just remember seeing dice names. So
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. The student dice, you get one for every extracurricular you're participating in. It's a D4 that you can roll and add to an ability check that you make, provided the check uses one of the skills listed in that extracurricular. So, for instance, the Dead Languages Society has skills in athletics and history. So, if you would have a student die for that, and you would be able to use that D4 to add to an ability check of athletics or history. You can wait until after rolling your D20 to roll the student dice if you would like, but you must do so before you say whether the check succeeds or fails. So you can't be like, I got a 12. Well, you fail. Oh, well, then I'm going to add my student die.
Right.
Mhm.
None of that.
Well, if this helps you guys at all, over on the character sheet, there's a spot for resources, and I just hit plus, and I have my reroll for tests and have that as a number. That's going to help me tremendously. So just pointing that out, just in case you guys didn't see that.
Good note. Thank you.
As an aside, with the extracurriculars, you do get a positive or negative, your choice, relationship point with one student NPC who is also a member of the extracurricular. So Quintilius is in the Dead Languages Society. If you already had a negative 1 point, but you really wanted to get that Bane, you can throw down a -1 point on that just for being in that extracurricular. For Andrew and Jara, it's going to be a little bit extra work because you're in all of the extracurriculars, but you do you. You're going to have a student die like crazy on like everything, but you're going to have to keep track of all of that. So good luck, but that's how that goes. Okay. Yorick, you have passed. You got a 19 on your roll with your advantage. You have passed. You have your re-roll for the testing phase, which we'll get into in a little bit. Archie, so you're working as the group, but how do you study?
Well, Archie studies mostly by listening to everyone else explain things, so he doesn't trust himself to actually understand it. Yeah, so he's, sitting there and he's kind of reading, but mostly just listening to the questions, the other people are asking, and then listening to the answers and writing those answers down, kind of getting them explained to him in a more easy to understand way rather than how the professor is doing it, in such an advanced way.
Okay, yeah.
So could that be perception?
Yeah, I think it absolutely could be. Perception is really, looking for an answer to something in a more generalized.
Yeah, looking or listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling or smelling,
Hearing or smelling. Yeah, I'm sniffing around for the answers.
Smells like A, no, B. That's
Definitely B. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's got B written all over it.
You
Natural
just see
20.
Yorick so nervous because he's like, "Oh, I thought that smelled like a C."
He's like, what am I smelling?
Nat
With a
20.
the nat 20 on it, you're gonna get 2 re-rolls on this
Ooh.
test. So you get double the amount of re-rolls. You pass it normally, you were gonna get that one, but you did so well in your studying. Like you've learned so many little things that like little ways of just remembering a bunch of different information. You've got mnemonics for days.
Yeah, it really helped that York was asking all the questions that Archie had, and so he was just listening to Billy repeat all the answers.
Yeah. For the 4th time. For the 4th time, I am telling you. And Archie just
So good.
enjoy it. So two re-rolls for you. Let's see. Let's go with Dell next.
Dell, he has different study methods depending on which class it's for. For this one, he said it's physiology, magical physiology or something.
Yep.
Yeah, for this one, he would definitely be with the group. And then while York's asking questions and Billy is explaining, Dell is questioning me like, so if this is that, then you say, then wouldn't this happen? So then he's like going back and forth with like discussing with Billy while like answering York's questions.
Very nice.
For writing stuff down, he has his own He's like shorthand, and sometimes he has like pictures and stuff. So then his notes wouldn't be helpful to anybody, but it helps him understand and put things together quickly.
Sure.
For this one, he's gonna go with nature because he has a lot of experience with different creatures of the swamp and their physiology. So he's
Perfect.
falling back on that.
Yeah, falling back on some information you already knew. So you'll get advantage on the roll because you're working with the study group.
Sweet. And then let me see.
And very much fortunately, you took that advantage.
Yes.
Because I like to think that like the first time you were like, oh yeah, I know a lot of stuff about you know, all different kinds of things and all different kinds of animals. And Billy's like, you've met like actual Slotty and like in the wild, and you were like, no, I actually have crap.
Just that pause, that hesitation.
We just dive right into that. Yeah, Billy's just like, they're aberrations. When in the world have you seen an aberration?
Like, that's what it's called. I've seen it growing up when I was a child. Yeah.
Oh man, guys, very quickly, there is how I have that puzzle, it's made of titanium. Did I show you guys that puzzle?
I saw it.
Puzzle made of titanium.
The new one just dropped. So it's called Joust. This is a picture of it. That's a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all cross pieces like this.
Hmm.
And I really want to buy it, but I'm not gonna because it's $550 and Mariah would absolutely rip my head off. But
You bought a what?
they're only available for like 30 minutes. That's it. They open it for
Oh,
30
man.
minutes and they close it. And however many orders they get in those 30 minutes, up to a certain maximum, that's it. They never make them again.
Wow.
So it's like little pieces of art. It's totally, truly something that has no value outside of being a little piece of art. But I think they're worth it. Dell and Archie's study, like ways that they study, remind me of this guy that I studied with in nursing school, where like the only way his brain would retain information was through mnemonics. That was it. Like he worked in the hospital for years. Like he already knew a lot about the hospital stuff. But he really didn't know, but he worked in like equipment processing. So he knew like all of the names of things that they used in the OR, but when it came to actual like physiology and stuff, he had no idea. And the only way that he could really do anything was with mnemonics. And I remember there was this one time, and he had a mnemonic for everything, but we were going through chambers of the heart and how the heart pumps, and you've got your superior vena cava, your inferior vena cava goes into the right atrium, goes through the mitral valve into the right ventricle, comes through the pulmonic arteries into the lungs, comes back into the lung, comes back into the left ventricle and or left atrium, and keeps going through it. And he had this mnemonic that was like 25 letters long.
Oh,
and it was like an entire story about a prince, and that's how he remembered it. Like he passed, but like
Yeah.
what cost, man? Like
Yeah.
just he's like, I got this really easy way of remembering all of it. And we were like, oh, cool, that's
Yeah,
really helpful.
let's
And he
do
was
it.
like, yeah, so it's AXBWYX, just like all these different.
Yes.
You were like, huh? It took you more time to figure out the mnemonic than it did for you
Yeah.
to know the information.
to just learn the info.
But he passed. He did pass. So that's really all that ends up mattering, I guess.
Hopefully.
So if you ever have a nurse who just has a mnemonic for everything, it's probably him. But okay, continuing on, Mr. Or sorry, not Mr. Miss Jera. Is it Jera?
Yeah.
I don't know why I want to say Jana. I don't know why.
Why you want to say Jen either?
I'm glad we're on the same page about that then. How does with how much she hoards? I know that you also hoard information. But
yeah,
do,
she definitely has a giant like notebook for each class. And it's kind of like a mind mapping system. There's lines and squigglies and arrows and not emojis, like smiley faces. And it would be very difficult for her to explain and impossible for anyone else to explain what's going on, but she is making links to from whatever interesting thing she hears in the class to whatever's already in her chaotic file system.
very interesting. It's like if like the Dewey Decimal System was created by somebody with not the disease that your letters all change around, but the one
Dyslexia.
not dyslexia, but the number one.
Dyscalculia.
Yeah, that's it. Dyscalculia. That's like
spider.
Dewey Decimal System was with somebody who had created dyscalculia. Like it makes absolutely no sense, and trying to explain it also doesn't make sense because the numbers change every time they look at the paper. But nonetheless, it is organized.
Well, sure.
So what role would you like to take for Jera?
Uh,
Or are you working with the group, or did you
how
go?
about? Yeah, I would be with the study group.
Okay, I figured you would be, but
Nice.
How about persuasion?
okay. How does
Mhm,
persuasion roll
mhm.
into your studies?
Well, I guess it depends on the class, but like I said, she's trying to talk people into bringing her notes and explaining things and catching up with everything and getting people to hold on and wait and all of those sort of things.
I like the thought that you're in this 200-person magical physiologies class and you have a copy of every single person's notes.
I don't think she has every person's notes. She definitely wouldn't want every person's notes.
But like, yeah, I'm sure there's also people that are like, no, I don't. Why would I give you my notes? And then of course there are people who just don't take notes at all. Or Yorick, who has a rock.
I
So
was gonna say, like, here's my notes, but it's not that helpful without my here you go. It's all sweaty, so it's damp and like
A
Mine
damp
make no
rock.
sense.
okay, well, Jera, go right ahead and make your roll with advantage. Your persuasion roll is perfectly fine at 25 and a 23. Like you didn't even need it. You just like she's like, I've got the studying part down. Like no problems.
I
We are
cannot
on
fail.
top of this. Nothing comes out of this mind trap. Okay. We've all passed. Billy, please show them that old people know how to study.
I love
please
that
do. I'm using you a lot. So
Billy's study method, or like how Billy interacts, has been like painted by everyone that's around him. I love that. I've
Yeah.
definitely like altered my notes because I'm like, okay, this is how Billy is. So I kind of like the idea that Billy is more of a big picture kind of thinker.
Mhm.
Where like to understand the minutia, you kind of have to understand the big picture. So that informs how he studies. I also like the idea that like he's one of those, which John, you will definitely know this because it's very similar how you and I study. He learns by teaching.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
100% York asks him a question and like he doesn't always know it. York's like, okay, so what's this in relation to that organelle? And Billy's like, give me a second. And like he's gonna look at his notes and he might like talk to Dell and Jera and be like, okay. I have a good idea. Okay, so basically in the cell, if you think of the cell as like a whole unit, this thing does this. This helps get the protein across the membrane, both membranes. So like you need it, like it's the door that lets things in it. So like he explains via that.
I like that.
I'm going to use investigation because I'm kind of thinking like
Yeah.
he has to investigate the answer that York asks, and that's how like he learns. So advantage, 2d20s.
Oh, powerhouse to the cell. So that's like the power lifter.
And Billy loves when someone makes a connection. He's like, yes, exactly that. Like it's yes, exactly. And like that's that when he's taking the test and he comes across and he goes, what is the mitochondria? He's like, it's the weightlifter. Like that helps him too. So it kind of goes both ways. I rolled a T1 with advantage.
What was it? Sorry.
21.
All right, perfect. Well, your guys' studying seems to be working fantastically. You guys are working together as a team. You guys all passed the studying phase. You all have your re-roll. Archie was just right on top of it with that nat 20. Though, so he's gonna get the 2. But
I also will say that like my 19 was a 21, so we all got over 20.
this is true.
I'm glad we had the re-roll because my first one was a 6.
Yeah, it does help to definitely give that little push with
Well,
having
like I love that mechanic because like I planned on York doing this anyway, so I'm like, yes, there's a mechanic in the game for it. This is awesome.
All right, so let's move on. You guys, you have taken your days, you've been studying, you've been working hard, and now it's time to actually take the test. The testing notes, exactly. There we go, testing phase. So, each test phase is going to consist of 2 ability checks with specifics that I have noted in our encounter. If you gained any re-rolls while studying, you'll use 1 re-roll when making an ability check, re-rolling the d20, and using the new roll. It's not advantage, it's a re-roll, just to be very clear.
Okay.
There are 3 possible outcomes. You can fail, you have no successful ability checks, you fail the test, you've gotten fewer than half of the questions correct. You can pass, which means you had 1 successful ability check. You got half or more of the questions correct, but not all of the questions, and you're going to gain 1 student die. If you aced it, that's 2 successful ability checks. You aced the exam, you got every question right, you're going to gain 2 student die. Okay. The test does allow for you to cheat. An unscrupulous character can cheat on the exam, and doing so requires a successful deception check and a successful sleight of hand check, both using the DC that I have set for the exam. If you cheat, you can't use any of your re-rolls. It is just the straight 2 rolls. If you fail either of those checks, a proctor will notice and you will fail the exam. If you both are successful on them, you will successfully cheat and you will ace the exam and gain the 2 student dice for acing the exam. If you fail the test, the bylaws will require you to attend tutoring with a junior faculty member until you achieve at least a passed exam in a different exams encounter. So the tutoring may be narrated. We might play through it with some role playing, but a student who must attend tutoring can't take part in any extracurriculars or jobs until you achieve that passed exam during one of the academic year's exams. So you lose all of your benefits. And you need to indicate that suspension on your sheet that you can't be working in any of your other things. Once you have that student die, that's a D4 that you can add to an ability check. Just remember you have to add it before we'll find out if you pass or fail. And you can only roll 1 per long rest and 1 per check. So if you have 5 student die, you can't roll 5 student die on 1 check. You can only roll 1. But just make sure that you always keep track of how many student die you have and the skills that you apply on your sheet. The difference is that with extracurriculars, your student die can only work with the skills that are listed specifically on that extracurricular, whereas the student die that you collect from passing a test, you can use on any ability check. So there are two different kinds there. So just make sure that you're paying attention to those and keeping those separated when you're talking about the testing. So let's talk about what the test is actually on. The test is on, as we had mentioned a little bit earlier, SLA-D, which is it's a regenerative aberration with magic resistance. They're always dangerous and unpredictable, but the red and blue colored variants are the least powerful and don't cast spells. Red SLA-D use a gland under one of their claws to implant an egg into a humanoid. Gross. And the egg eventually becomes a tadpole that bursts from the host's body and transforms into a full-grown blue SLA-D, or a green SLA-D if the host could cast spells at a higher level. Green, gray, and death's SLA-D can shapeshift into small or medium humanoids. A green SLA-D usually wields a staff and can hurl both fireballs and magical flames at its throws. Death SLA-D have been rumored to have a stench so bad it could be deadly itself. In reality, they cast Cloud Kill. Inexperienced scholars and adventurers sometimes assume SLA-D is a misspelling or mispronunciation. Calling these creatures salads is frowned upon, especially by your teacher. So you're going to have two ability checks related to parts of the test: SLA-D facts and diffusing SLA-D confrontations. On the SLA-D facts, you are going to choose the correct multiple choice answers to questions about red, blue, green, gray, and death SLA-D, and you need to be making an Arcana check. That's going to be your first one, an Arcana check. You do have your re-rolls. Don't forget about this, but that is what you're rolling, Arcana. Diffusing SLA-D confrontations is going to be a short essay about commonly accepted ways to keep SLA-D calm during unexpected encounters and will require an insight check. So Arcana and insight for this test. The teacher hands out the papers. It's a thick stack. It is thicker than you were expecting. You were like, oh, it's gonna be like 25 multiple choice and a little short answer. No, this is like 100 multiple choice and 2 short answers. Like, it's a big one. It's stapled together, and like, it's bad when you have to like flip over to the other page and you look, it's double-sided. And there's a whole diagram thing you got to fill out. It's a big test, and this teacher's definitely not making it easy on you. Arcana and insight are two things that a lot of people don't have at level 1, so it's going to make it even more difficult. But the teacher says, everybody, this is your test. We're ready to go. And let's take a small 10-minute break before we take our test. Everybody go potty, your bladder, be prepared to take the test, and we will be back shortly. We are here for the test. SLA-D, is it SLA-D or SLAD? How do you pronounce that?
SLAD.
Whatever it is, York would say it correctly.
I mean, if the insult is salad, salad makes more sense.
SLAD.
Yeah.
The AE combined, that's right? Yeah.
It's whatever you
Wow.
want it to be.
Isn't that A?
Yeah, it's yeah.
It's A.
Slade.
Slade is stupid though, so we shouldn't say that.
Slade. Anyway, we're not in that kind of timeline right now. That hasn't come around yet. But like 2 generations from now, kids in the school will be like, we're gonna be talking about slaying.
Yeah.
So
How do they do that?
two-
Pop noise. But
Oh,
To
no.
Extraction Team 4, where is this storyline? Because I know it was in the future of the other one, but what about from Extraction Team 4?
Oh, wait. This is
Specifically,
still
I need to
past.
know if yeet is a word since Gideon invented it. So
um, this storyline takes place about 800 years after the events of Andrew's campaign.
Right.
You previously said 593 years.
I was
after
about to say we
Andrew's
add like 100 years every time we talk about this.
Yeah,
I,
it's like 1,400 years, right?
yeah. Actually, it's 1,401, but
Oh, right, because they were first years. Duh.
and then it's like, I think it's around somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 years before the Extraction Team
Yeah,
4.
this is middle.
Okay, so yeet is not a thing. Okay, got it.
I don't know. Things have a tendency to come back around. So,
Yeah. Okay. So who wants to the room is quiet. It's a large room. They made you sit one seat in between everybody. Like they used, oh, I hated that. I'm like, but that's my spot. Doesn't matter. Not on test day. Everybody's one seat apart from each other. Teacher's got the stack. She walked up one aisle and handed them all down, and everybody hands them down. She says, you can try and cheat, but just remember that there are 3 versions of this test. So the version that your neighbor has might not be the same version that you have. So copying off of them might result in you getting the wrong answers. And I have kept track on exactly which test has what answers in what order, and I will know if you've been cheating. So try your hardest. It's not going to work. I hope you all studied. I hope you all used your friends and your peers and all of your study materials. I hope you paid attention in class. I hope you did your reading. There is to be no magical anything in the room right now. Your speaking stones need to be in your bags. Your, if
Yorick dispels his armor.
anything that has
Like-
anything on it, you should have one pen or pencil on your desk and nothing else, and a calculator. Just kidding, you're not going to need a calculator. Just put it
I
away.
was literally about to like.
Any math that you have on this test is going to be available for you to do in your head very easily. Don't worry about it. You're not doing any kind of algebraic components with this. It's about SLA-D in particular. So, all right. You guys have 60 minutes to complete the test. When you're done, please bring your paper down to me and then immediately leave the classroom. You don't need to be loitering. We're not going to be doing any lecture after this test. You'll be free for the rest of the day. So if you get done with it really quick, awesome. You get a longer break. If you take the full 60 minutes, that's perfectly fine. That's why you have them. So everybody, if you could please open up your text booklets and let's get started. And she sits down at the front with a bag of chips and a perfectly silent classroom and is crunching chips while everybody is teaching class.
Really does not have much
my
fun.
gosh. Billy's starting out strong with the SLAD facts. Is this your Arcana check?
This is my Arcana check.
Billy, you look at that paper and you think, oh my gosh, I know all of these answers.
You're like, these are all questions York asked me.
So glad I studied
Awesome.
with you.
You're like, you kind of look over, you like look for Yorick. He's like a little bit farther away down, like a couple of rows in front of you. And you look at him and Yorick, how do you look right now? How about you make your roll and see how you look?
I definitely will take the full 60 minutes. I will say I will be the last person turning in my test. But let's roll.
An Arcana.
Are you gonna use a reroll or are you gonna stick with it?
That's what I'm debating.
All right, you gotta say it.
Like I have, it's a flat roll for me. I at least get a
Oh, it is
plus
a flat
2 on the
roll.
next one.
I see. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
On the other one, I have a better chance of passing, I think, if I hold on to my reroll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Well,
smart.
you look over at Yorick and he has taken his glasses off and is not his fingers on his forehead. He hasn't even touched the pencil.
I
But he's looking buff though. He is looking real strong when he's
Yeah,
doing
if
this.
he's holding his,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
he's
like-
Oh yeah, he's bulging. Yeah.
Straight up the thinker. Who sits
Yeah.
like this anyway? Who sits like this? But
I think I'll play the safe route and leave it at an average score.
okay, I didn't tell you what your DC is, so
Yeah,
I know that's
yeah.
that's a
Eh,
yep.
That's perfect.
only reason we know Billy passed is because he got an at 20. You know,
Right.
like he knows. Yorick, you sit there and you're looking at those first couple of questions and you're like, okay. Okay. And you kind of look over to your right where Archie's sitting, and Archie, how you doing?
Well,
Hey,
I'm gonna keep the 14. I'm gonna keep it. I know I got 2 rerolls, but honestly, I'm gonna keep
Yeah,
it.
the
think
thing
that's a
about the
safe- I
reroll
think-
is like you have to take the reroll.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
really
true. It's
hard.
not
Yeah.
advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep the 14.
Okay.
Yeah, I could easily roll twice and roll below 14 twice.
Mhm.
Archie, you sit there, you're going through it, you're like, all right, okay, some of this information, I'm kind of recalling some of this. You're not 100% confident, like you're coming across some stuff where you're like, oh, I kind of remember talking about that. Kind of. Crap, what did Billy say? What was he talking about? You kind of lean back in your chair and you're kind of thinking a little bit. And you kind of look off in the distance. A couple of rows in front of you is Dell.
Wow.
I'm already done. Just kidding.
Yeah. Dell's gotten through. He's flipped the pages a couple of times. He's on to the third page, and he's moving at a nice, steady pace. You're feeling rather confident. And you're like, this stuff's it's easier than I was thinking. You think you might have kind of overstressed yourself a little bit during the studying phase, where you're like, maybe I did it a little bit too much. Like, it ended up being more information than you studied more information than what was actually on the test.
Mhm.
But you're feeling pretty confident getting through this. And then as you're kind of getting through it, the door in the back opens, and Jara, with her book bag spilling open, runs down, and the teacher kind of and hands you a booklet, Jara, and you sit in one of the open seats in the front row, rip out a piece of paper for your scratch notes and a pencil, and you start on your test. How are you feeling, Jara?
Feeling good. Feeling good.
Roll your Arcana check for me.
Don't not feeling good anymore.
You do have the capability. We're taking the one on the left because we're not rolling with advantage. I know that it
Okay.
sets you to do it automatically. So the one on the left is the actual roll. If
Yeah.
you would like, you do have a re-roll that you can use if you'd rather take that.
Yeah, I think that I'd better re-roll that one.
Yeah, you pulled out some research notes, and you're like, "Oh wait, that's the wrong class. Let me get these."
Okay.
Ooh,
The 7.
you worked it better. Yes.
You're kind of like you sat down late for the class. You're kind of in a little bit of a mess. Just physically, you got all your stuff kind of sprawled out next to you. You sat down, you just jumped right into the material, and you're trying to feel like you're playing catch up, trying to catch up with everybody else in the class. You feel like you're falling behind on this test when in actuality you probably aren't. You were only a few minutes late. You're still doing okay. But you're feeling a little bit frazzled, I guess would be the best way of putting that. But fortunately, everybody gets through all of the multiple choice, and the dreaded essay questions comes on. There's 2 of them, both on the same subject, just different types of them. And we'll return back to the beginning. Billy, you're feeling strong getting through the multiple choice, and man, the words are just pouring out of you eloquently. You're just
Yes.
feeling good about it. Like you're like, you know what? Like how I was helping with everybody else, like I think that's my way of studying. I think that really works. Like
That works for me.
I haven't done this in a really long time, but you're pulling that information out like it's nothing. Like I mean, it's no problem for you at all. You look at Yorick, you see that he's picked up his pencil, he's flipped the pages over a couple of times. He's still looking a little bit worried, but you see that he is writing. He is no longer just circling in little dots. Yorick, how you feeling?
What kind of check is it again?
This one is insight.
Okay. I definitely feel better after I re-roll. I feel better.
Oh,
There we
I feel
go.
so much better. I feel
There
so.
you go.
I'm like,
You were
oh,
nervous. You're
definitely
like, I don't
talked about
remember
this.
anything.
517.
this is
Like,
one of those
I
tests-
panicked and reread. Like I read it wrong. And I was like, I don't know any. And I'm like, read. And I reread. And I'm like, I know everything about this. Man,
I hate those tests where it's like pick two of the following three topics to write about, and you get through the first one, you're like, I'm not feeling too strong on that one, and the second one, you're like, oh, I'm really not feeling strong on that one, so I'm gonna do that first one, and then you get to the third one, and you're like, oh, I really, really don't like that one either. Like one, I'm like sort of kind of confident on, but the other two, you're like, I gotta pick one. I don't know what to do, but I feel like that's how Yorick started. Was like that first one was like, okay, let's start with two. But nonetheless, you feel like you got a full page on both of them. You feel like you got a lot written down. So Archie's next to you. He's scribbling away right now. And how's he doing?
I'm gonna use a reroll on that.
Okay.
I'm gonna use a reroll on that too. Please don't bite me in the butt. Oh, there we go. Okay. Slowly but surely, I'm working up.
Archie, as you were writing, it seems like once you got started, then the information flowed. It was that first, like, how do I approach this? And how do I get this to work the best way that I can? But you feel confident in what you've been writing. You're looking pretty good. Dell, you've finished. Like your book's closed. You've written, you've cracked your knuckles. You're kind of just skimming back over the material, making sure you didn't miss anything. And you feel real good about this test. You're like,
just double check, just in case. I'm like,
yeah,
no,
let me make
okay.
sure I didn't miss anything.
Totally.
or-
Was that? Oh,
On both of those rolls, Dell was one higher than Billy on both
what?
of those.
Oh, what's it really?
I got a
Oh,
21, you got a
man.
22, I got a 22, you got a 23.
What? That's hilarious.
It's funny. It's like this, like you have the smart kid, and then you have the secretly also smart kid.
Mhm.
Who's like I'm not gonna be like all flashy about it. I'm not running this study group, but I will be.
Right. I'm just like, wait, you're talking about this? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, interesting. All right, cool. Continue.
He always like throws in like quips like on the side, like, or
Yeah.
you could think of it this way. And you're like, oh yeah, you could think of it that way. That's
He's
kind
just
of
like,
ingenious. Jerry, you've slowed your pace down. You've kind of rehoned yourself. You remember which class you're actually sitting in, which is magical physiologies, which makes sense because the test seems to be about magical physiology. You've gotten through your multiple choices. You've gotten to the essay section. And how are you feeling about your essays, Jer?
My name is Jera. It's insight, right? I'm
This
feeling
one
good
is,
about
yes,
it.
insight.
For some reason, I'm not very insightful. It's because I just expect everyone has everyone else's best interest at heart.
Okay. You've written it. You've gotten about 3/4 of a page on both of them, but you feel like you could have done better, but just the info just wasn't there. It's just so jumbled right now, and you just didn't feel like you could really reach out and grab it and utilize it like you could. But nonetheless, you feel confident that you got the answers written. Over the course of the next 60 minutes, Dell finishes his test first, followed by Billy, then Archie, and then Yorick technically finished before Jara, but Jara turned it in because Yorick was poring over those answers. Every single one. He went back and looked at like 4 times. He's like double, triple, quadruple checking everything. And everybody leaves the class. And you all meet up at the Fire Jolt Cafe. And Dell, you're not working today, but you grab a drink. What's everybody drinking today? What's your post-test drink? Tea?
Herbal tea.
Tea for sure.
Nice chamomile.
Herbal tea sounds great.
Herbal tea. So we got
What's
chamomile.
what's the drinking age in this area?
There's no alcohol on campus. No alcohol sold on campus. Let me phrase that.
I'll take a coffee. The next hardest thing, you know.
How does York drink his coffee? Black, like his soul. Yeah, okay. William used to always say that he likes his coffee like he likes his women. Black and without a penis.
Without a penis.
Yeah, that sounds like William.
Oh,
Yeah.
classic.
Okay, so we got chamomile tea for Archie. Dell, you're drinking herbal tea as well, but what kind of herbal tea? Are you drinking lavender? Are you drinking peppermint? What kind?
Yeah, it's definitely different than the one that Archie has. Honestly, he would have tea mixture from home that he takes. So then he gets just get some hot water, and then he grabs his own bag and starts mixing it up.
I could see that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Got his own little mixtures of different kinds of teas. I would definitely go for a cup of chamomile tea. I really do like chamomile tea, but it does try to kill me, so I can't.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Jara was getting an herbal tea as well. What kind of herbal tea?
Andrew, you're Jared.
All of the herbs, every herb. Is this gameplay? What?
That's gameplay.
It's building the character.
Character
And
building,
Next time, we'll get our regular drinks. This is our after.
Okay, well, Jara would see what everyone else was having, and let's see. I need to practice my insight, so I'm gonna roll insight, and I want to see who looks like they have the best taste in tea.
Ooh.
Billy, are you drinking tea too, or did you get a coffee?
Go.
I hope you get a nat 1 and you pick me that's
This
drinking
is
coffee.
gameplay. Go. Nat 1. I'm going to pick whatever my poor judgment leads me to pick.
Oh, that's a nat 1 and a 2.
No, she
Doing
actually
everything with
does.
advantage.
She goes up to the counter and says, "I want a tea with all the herbs, all of them."
Every
It's like-
herb, yeah.
It's either
And they're like,
that-
"Are you sure that's not good?" All the herbs together.
it tastes horrible.
You're just
Add the
eating a
coffee
salad
beans
at that
too.
point.
Add the coffee beans.
It's a really wet salad. That's all it is. It's a
Oh.
hot, wet salad. It's either that or she walks up and she's like, "Oh, I'll have my usual." And the lady's like, "Who are you?"
Who are you?
I just love like Andrew can have my bad luck. That's all I'm saying. Like
You're like I had enough of it. It's time for a new.
I think maybe
Man.
we'll popcorn more this campaign because last session Billy couldn't do a goddamn thing, right? This session, okay,
Billy's
20s
doing-
across the board. I'm
Yeah.
pretty chuffed. So like Andrew will have it next session, and it'll have to be Archie. We'll only roll low numbers.
It's like, wait, I didn't agree to this.
I dealt with that already.
Oh yeah, he started the
Oh,
whole
that's-
thing off.
Yeah.
He did.
Billy, what did you drink? What'd you get?
So I was thinking about it. I don't see Billy as being a tea drinker, and it's too late in the day for him to have coffee. It'd keep him up all night.
Yeah.
So I think he's gonna go with like
You think
orange
our
juice.
exams late at night?
Orange juice. Okay, a juice.
We'll
You know,
take the
honestly, a
college
juice
exam.
does sound good.
And I'm thinking, like Billy looks at it's a little bit healthier. It's a little bit better for his digestive tract. He's an old man. He's got to think about stuff like that. He's gonna go with an orange juice.
Still notices the
You,
juice.
you say
That's
that that's healthier. I'm like, yours got way more sugar than mine does.
Mine's like 5 freaking calories. It takes more calories for me to cool this drink down in my gullet than it is for me to actually drink it.
Like nothing. Like I know nothing about the human body except for weight gains, calorie intakes. Like I'm like, you said that you took the healthier drink, and I'm like, no, you didn't.
No, 100%, and that's 100% like in world too. Like Billy sits down and they're like, "You're not gonna get a tea." He's like, "No, I wanted an orange juice is a little bit healthier for me." And York's like, "Mm." Billy's like, but it came from a fruit."
Yorick heard protein during the lecture and was like, all right. You see, you guys are all sitting there kind of just talking about how the test went. And you kind of start to hear a murmur amongst some of the other students that not the test answers, but the test results have been posted. It's been a couple of hours since the test has been over. There's something in the Fire Jolt Cafe. There's kind of a couple of computer screens, essentially like big TV screens. And on those, it lists like departure times of flights, just initials and pass fail right next to it.
Wow.
It doesn't give like a percentage necessarily, but it just says, initials, what school you're in, pass fail. And so everybody starts to kind of crowd around it. Billy, you step up first.
Billy, just tell me what I got. It probably shows up as Xavier first instead of York.
You see WS aced. Gets that perfect score, like just blew
Good
through that
job.
test, and you were like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah, Billy's just like, that tracks. And Billy
You
would
say
like,
that-
he'd see his and just like immediately start being like, okay, yeah, I knew I passed. And he'd be looking for York's and he'd be looking for everyone else's, be like, okay, how did everyone else do? Come on, guys.
I
know
put
you
my
did
helmet
this.
on and I'm like looking down because I'm stressing out.
That was just sipping his tea, just like.
Next one up, it says AF. Aced.
What?
Oh.
Archibald needs to
Excellent
sit
work.
down for a second.
Excellent work, Rumi.
Next one pops up. DC. Aced.
Excellent work, Rumi.
We look as we continue. XB.
That's B.
Passed.
Woo! Billy definitely claps him on the back, like, oh, you passed it. You did great, man. You did great.
And then
No reaction. Like
Jared, what's
I don't
Jared's
react.
last name? Shiny Water.
Tiny water.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Shiny water.
JS. Failed.
Oh,
That's a big blow to you, Jared, because you're in a lot of extracurriculars. and you're not quite sure how you're going to be able to like take all the time from your extracurriculars and your job to go to a study session.
Billy
until after
seeing
this next one.
Jared failed it will like immediately offer help. Just be like, hey, maybe we just didn't have a good study technique for you. Let's figure out what works for you next time. You will ace the next one. We'll do it.
Kara is going to just, kind of give a quiet smile and then look down at her notebook with a look as if she's been somewhat betrayed.
We will just simply need to study more.
Different
you
people
like-
learn
you
differently.
like you say that and like you could see York physically tensed up when you said that because he would have like secretly pulled an all-nighter. Like he tries so hard, he just doesn't grasp it. It's
Mhm.
like
If you pulled an all-nighter, you do have a point of exhaustion.
He would have also had
Would
an
have.
advantage that he didn't actually say. So because he's saying it after the fact,
True,
I don't
true.
think he gets the point.
Either way, you
Ju-
pass.
just-
I mean, you
just-
passed the test.
just for S's and G's on the first one. That would have cool.
Yeah, you would have aced it.
Yeah, whatever. I'm still giving myself the exhaustion.
On top of everything else that's happened, you did pass your first exams. You've gotten quite a bit into your, it's been about a month that you've been at school. And you will all be leveling up to level 2.
Let's
Yeah.
Even those of us that
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
pass our first exams.
Even the one who didn't pass their first
You-
exam.
You are now a commoner. I'm sorry.
I can almost do magic. One more level. Actually, I guess technically I would need to be level 5 because I don't think paladins get it until second level.
Ooh, I get to choose
And
my
I'm a
druid
five.
circle.
But I could do an echo in one more level.
Yeah. how's
Ooh,
everybody
that's
feeling about
axe
their
inserts
first exam?
time.
Can infuse an item.
You can fuse an item.
Infuse.
Infuse. Oh yeah, you're an
Artificer.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
forgot
would
to.
very much recommend infusing something that you wear. Because then you have a focus.
Yeah, you can infuse something you wear. You can fuse your mom.
Oh,
Nice.
Just because without that, you will have to pull out a tool to use your spells. But if
Yeah, you
you
will.
use something that you infused, you can use that as your focus.
Nice.
Does
I
remind me
know
how
at least
to-
one item has to be he's got a pair of infused gloves. We already established that I wanted to do like that was his tool.
Dale's definitely
Magic.
gonna get himself a wand.
Ooh,
Does
you
the- I
use
imagine-
wands?
I'm going for a wand on this one. Yeah.
Oh, and
Billy
I
can
do
do some
apologize,
stuff.
Mhm.
Donald. They do have alcohol on campus, but it's only at the Bows End Tavern at like dinner time.
Yeah, I will go there. Probably, I would try to go by myself because I am sad. I am very sad.
Because I am sad.
What day? So is he going in the evening?
It would have to.
Okay, darn. Billy won't be working then. Billy works Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Oh, because
I work at the Bow.
you work there.
So we'll finish our story for the day, which is just an exam day, which is a little off of a normal session, but like we were talking about it, there's a lot of character development that needs to happen in this one before we can really kind of like get into it. But we will. Well, I don't have a job right now, so whatever day works. We are leaving in an hour and a half to start our drive to Minneapolis. We are driving to St. Charles tomorrow, and then we are finishing the drive from St. Charles to Minneapolis. And we should be in Minneapolis by the 8th, right?
Mhm,
Yeah, the 8th.
Saturday.
So this weekend is Easter Sunday. The 12th is Winston's adoption day. So just as a reminder, if anybody's curious. That was the day we got Winston, was April 12th.
Oh.
His birthday's March 1st, though. He celebrated at camp. And they threw a big old birthday party for him with ice cream and cake. And my parents are moderately ashamed that their grandchild has 4 legs.
Fur baby.
Other than that, though, next week is wide open. It seems Thursdays tend to work the best ish.
Generally, yes. Though next week is Branson Victory Campaign.
That is
for
right.
Here, so then all I have is Monday night personally, but y'all do as works fit.
What about, okay, so Tim gave a thumbs up on the Monday.
I could do either, as always. But Monday would be
Monday
better.
is gonna be hard for me. I might be able to make it work. I won't know for sure.
Okay. What about Philip?
Monday should be fine.
And last but not least,
Monday's fine.
Monday's fine. Let's stick with Monday for now. If it doesn't work out for you, Donald, just let me know. Archibald rolled a 4.
I was doing hit die.
Oh yeah, because you guys get more health now that you don't have 3 health. It's gonna come in handy. So our next session's title is going to be Work Hard, Play Harder. So
Oh, okay.
we'll plan on Monday the 10th for our next session. Yeah,
It's only a couple days away.
I really miss rolling and playing our game at the end of session.
I stopped doing that.
I know
Yeah.
well, it was for XP, and I was like, well, we can't do it because they're not doing XP. But I think I have a new thing. Whoever wins it gets an inspiration die the next session. But
Makes
just for that
sense.
next session. Just for
For
that.
the next session. Yeah,
like
I like
that.
that. Yeah.
I like that. Man, rolling 3 10s are gonna hurt
But
on these
do we
tests.
all get, if you roll you first and you log out, do we all get an inspiration die?
Yes. And the game has
Oh.
already started. So just in case you were wondering.
No.
Okay. So next, let's see. Who's feeling it? Who's feeling it? Who's going next?
I'm confident
No,
in my
it's definitely
abilities.
Andrew. Yeah, it's definitely Andrew.
Philip,
I was psyching it out. I was hoping it was Philip.
I think Andrew's gonna win this one. Actually, I'm leaning that direction now. I don't know if I'm next, but I think Andrew's gonna win it. Oh,
Reverse psychology does not work on Zoom.
well, no, I think you got this one, Andrew.
Okay, then.
You got it. You'll have an inspiration die next session. So
Yay!
all right.
You remember that. I could have used one this time.
That's okay. Oh, Tim says called it. Yeah, that's right. So all right.
Does
You
he
have a
get
good
inspiration for calling it.
Does he get inspiration for calling it? I'll think about it.
All right.
Have a good one, man.
Yep.